Halloween in the WB is on its way, and as parents and their little ones venture into their neighborhood to trick-or-treat, and others gather costume-laden celebrations in their homes and other places across the community, there are plenty of things to consider to keep the holiday lighthearted and keep the holiday also safe, of course, as we celebrate Halloween. Here with even more insight is West Bloomfield Police Department Community Relations Officer Zena Dailey. Officer Dailey, thank you for joining us as always as we dive into some of the details that go behind one of the most fun holidays of the year.
Hi, Tyler. Thank you for having me.
Glad to have you on because there's quite a lot to dive into this. It's all pretty simple and straightforward as families go out for Halloween. They're either going to maybe have small get-togethers at their house, dress up in their costumes, or they'll take their kids out to trick-or-treat. But there's a lot of hidden potential hazards within that people should be aware of, not necessarily scared of. So what are some of the highlights of that, especially for parents that will be going out and about with their kids on Halloween night?
For our trick-or-treaters, we always want to be sure that we're staying in groups, or especially if some of the preteens, teens are on their own, you want to make sure that they're in groups and not just going individually, and that parents know what route the kids will be taking so that if they do call them in an emergency, they know where they're headed to. So, of course, you want to stay in your groups. You want to make sure the little guys are looking, and even the older kids are definitely looking both ways, because as you know, we always have distracted drivers on the road, and it's dark out. Sometimes these kids are not wearing reflective gear, so the kids need to also be aware and look both ways before they're crossing the street to get to another house. If there's sidewalks, let's use those. That's ideal. If not, of course, stay either on the grass at the edge or very close to the grass. That way, you're away from the vehicles that are kind of coming to and from through the subdivisions. And of course, kids, before you guys do eat your candy, you want to make sure that your parents do check them, make sure there's no open wrappers or anything that looks suspicious. If there is, please make sure you guys toss that out and check the rest of the candy. For our drivers that are out there, again, young and old, I would say be very careful. Drive slowly. Let's keep our electronics off. Out of view so that we were paying attention to all of the pedestrians that are walking. Like we all know, kids will just dart across the street if they see something that looks exciting, or like maybe they're giving out some really good candy. So let's be aware, drive slowly, and make sure we're watching those kids that come between the cars. And that's usually where I think when you're not paying attention, the first thing that happens is the kid comes between a car and you're very close to them. So I would say, I'm sorry, go ahead, Tyler.
Yeah, and to consider that for drivers too, because it's one of the first things you learn in driver's training, or you have to learn as you're undergoing some additional driver's training later on, is that you're supposed to yield to pedestrians. But this is an interesting night because in your neighborhood, or even out on some of the township roads here in West Bloomfield, there's going to be people walking in the streets or across the streets a little bit more than normal. Does that change any of the expectations for drivers in our neighborhoods especially?
I would say you still need to yield. Absolutely. Drive slower than you normally would because there's so much more foot traffic. So if just to be cautious, just drive a little bit slower to get to where you're going. In the same side, the pedestrians also have a responsibility of paying attention to the vehicles that are driving through the subs, and that they're not running out in front of them, that they have their kids' hands if they're very young, just that they're very, very careful and paying attention to where their kids are as they get closer to the street.
There have been in the past some curfews, and I know other communities also implement curfews that say these are the times during Halloween night that you're permitted to be out and doing trick-or-treating. Sometimes it's neighborhood dependent, sometimes it's municipality dependent. Are there curfews in place in West Bloomfield that you're aware of, at least from the police department and the township?
As far as I know, typically it's 6 to 9 p.m. And I know some kids do go a little later, and those are usually the older kids, the preteens, the teens. But after 10 o'clock, I would say absolutely don't. I would not open your door. I would turn the lights off and be done with it.
All right, so we'll flip to the other side of this dynamic now, from the trick-or-treaters to the homeowners, because a lot of them love to get involved in Halloween, passing out the candy, getting to know some of the families in the community. It's a great way to do that, but it's also quite a vulnerable position to have people coming up to your doorstep, knocking on your door, seeing inside of your home. What are the tips from the police department for homeowners, especially those that will be participating face-to-face with trick-or-treaters in their neighborhood?
So if you're gladly opening up your door and passing out candy, but you feel uncomfortable with someone that's coming to your door, let's say your doors, sometimes the doors are completely closed and the kids have to knock and wait for someone to come to the door. If you're not comfortable, then just don't answer the door. You don't have any obligation, even if your porch light is on, to answer the door and pass out candy. So, and if you feel like there's a danger, then absolutely call the police department and let us come out and check it out. Just don't open the door, give us a description of what you see and why you were afraid. If you don't want to pass out candy, please make sure that so that you're not disturbed, turn your porch light off for at least that time period. I know you probably want it on through the night, which I always encourage lights on around the house. But during that time period, I would keep the porch light off so that kids know we're not passing out candy here. And once again, if you are passing out candy, please be aware of your pets. Make sure that as you're opening up that door, they're not able to run and dart out, and either attack the kids, or and even if they're friendly, still running out and into the road. So you definitely want to be careful with that.
And even more of these helpful tips are currently available on the West Bloomfield Police Department's Facebook page. Follow them at West Bloomfield PD for even more information. Officer Zena Dailey is with us on the Splash Live today, Community Relations Officer for the West Bloomfield Police Department, as we get ready to celebrate Halloween in West Bloomfield on Friday, October 31st. Officer Dailey, a lot of other people will have gatherings in their home for Halloween.
Yes.
Also, another alternative that people, especially adults, whether it's on that Friday night, a perfect night for a gathering like that, or over Halloween weekend. Any advice for those homeowners that are going to be bringing people in for parties at their house to keep themselves safe, as well as those that they are hosting?
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up, actually. I will start with our younger, our preteens, our teens that do now start to go to Halloween parties instead of either partaking in Halloween trick-or-treating or, like you said, between this week and Halloween where they are having parties. Make sure the parents or an adult, a trusted adult, know where they are, have the address if they're driving themselves or driving with a friend. Make sure that an adult, your parent, knows where you are. If you have an iPhone, you can have that Find My option, and if not, and you have something along the lines of, there are apps, something like Life 360, where you can kind of track each other's location. Parents, if you do have those in place, make sure that those are working properly and that you do check them just in case, or if you're worried, or if your kid calls you or texts you and something unusual seems to be happening. If you feel uncomfortable at one of these parties, I would suggest immediately call your family member, have them come pick you up. But if you feel like you're in a dangerous situation, an unsafe situation, I would call the police department, go to the bathroom, leave the house, and call us immediately, and we'll come out.
Yeah,
If you're
911
adults
always for
that are,
emergencies.
what's that? I'm sorry.
Please continue.
Yep. Oh, so if you're going to adult parties where there are adult beverages, there's alcohol involved, please make sure that you have a sober driver. Make sure that you have Uber set up so that you can at least have a ride home, just as long as you are not the one driving home. Way too many people out there, a lot of traffic. If it's on Halloween, a lot of kids, and that's the last thing that you want. That's something that we want. So we just want to make sure that you remember, have your designated driver set in place.
Yeah, definitely an even more important message as Halloween falls on a Friday night this year, a
Right.
night where many adults will go out and have their fun for Halloween and their own celebration, may involve those adult beverages, and then have the combination of that with kids out and about in the community trick-or-treating on Halloween proper. So all
Exactly.
important information. Officer Dailey, you mentioned earlier on, for parents and for kids especially, you mentioned for the kids, make sure your parents are able to check through your candy before you start consuming it after you go trick-or-treating. Really important message, and especially nowadays with all the different hazards that are potentially out there from people looking to do wrong by our kids, especially.
Right.
For parents, what specifically should they be looking for as they investigate the candy their kids bring home?
I would say always make sure if there's an open package, you toss it out. If there's holes in it, you want to make sure that in their bags, it may not be the candy, but while you sift through their bags, I would, instead of putting your hand in the bag, I would lay it out just for needles, razors, or anything of that type. You don't want to get stuck with any of that.
More information, helpful tips available on Facebook at West Bloomfield PD on the night of course, and anytime. If there's emergency, dial 911 and get in contact with our first responders right away. Even more important to
Yes.
have that message as we head into Halloween on a Friday night. Officer Dailey, before we let you go, any other important advice that we haven't covered yet, or other things people should be considering as we head toward Halloween in West Bloomfield?
Just make sure you're safe. Make sure that you have your designated drivers as you're going from parties between now and Halloween, and always, of course. Make sure that you know where your kids are, their location, that you have that conversation with your kids, our older kids, our preteens, our teens. Make sure we have the conversation of, if you feel unsafe, you need to call us. If you feel uncomfortable, let's have a safe word. For your younger kids, when you do go out to, whether it's a trunk or treat event or it is on Halloween trick or treating, if your kids don't know your phone number, write on a piece of paper, something I do with my own kids. And if they don't have a pocket to put your phone number in, put it in their shoe, put it in their sock, so that if something does happen, you're separated, they at least have a contact for you.
And all good information as well. You can get even more advice if you need it. The police department's non-emergency number is 248-975-9200, 248-975-9200. A good number to call in a, of course, non-emergency situation for any advice regarding safety of your home, your business, of course, your kids right here in West Bloomfield Township, or follow them on their Facebook page at West Bloomfield PD. Officer Dailey, thank you as always for your insight.
Thank you so much.